Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here as we get ready to continue the playoffs for the Elite Racing League MegaDriver86 series here on Flatout Racing Network. We're finally back. Hope everybody had a great holidays at Christmas and New Year's. But it's time to get going. Seth Cole along with Logan Brakey. And Logan, we kick off the second round of the playoffs here tonight at the very wide speedway of Auto Club.
Happy New Year, Seth. Good to be back. Yes, indeed. This is sure to be a thriller all the way to the checkered flag on lap 80. A lot of grooves on this racetrack and hopefully a lot of green flag laps that would lead up to some fuel mileage coming down towards the finish. This should be a thriller.
If we look back to the first round, we had a road course in Watkins Glen. We had a speedway in Kansas, and then we finished the thing off in an unbelievable finale for that round at Martinsville. Now we're focusing here at Auto Club. We got Iowa next week, and then we got Atlanta. When you come into a track like Auto Club, obviously, it would seem to me this would be the place we might see the underdog driver, the guy that we might not give a chance of getting to the Final Four, maybe try and pull out some strategy and get themselves a Final Four spot.
Yeah, for sure, Seth. And there's those drivers that are, consider themselves specialists in that area are definitely going to be licking their chops before the start of this race. Fuel mileage it's almost kind of has the same cards as a super speedway, where you can definitely expect to see the possibility of, like you said, an underdog driver taking the win here this afternoon. Heck, even somebody outside of that the final nine could have a shot at winning here this afternoon. So we'll just have to wait and see.
You can see the cars are gridded, and we're going to show you the side-by-side. After Martinsville, a few weeks ago, 5 drivers were eliminated from playoff contention, those being Joshua Clark, Stephen McGough, Jared Rexing, Rishabh Khosla, and Joshua Adams. So that leaves us with 9. The 9 drivers you see still in white are still in contention. Who are you looking at here, maybe out of these 9 drivers, to be the one to get that first Final Four position?
My money is just is on Ryan Lutz or Tate Lytle. Both of them have been very strong in this postseason. They've both won a race apiece, and they were strong in the regular season too. They were always running up front, always showing their strengths early and later on in the races. So my money is on one of those two.
I definitely am looking at Jarrett Campbell. He was top of the board, but I really like Tate Lytle because, before we came on the air, I was looking at his lap times, and I was thinking, this guy has 2 wins this season. One came at Michigan, one came at Kansas. The Michigan race got him into the playoffs. The Kansas race moved him here into the round of 9, and I thought this is a perfect place for him to kind of jump out and maybe get one of those Final Four spots. And lo and behold, we see him jump to the top of the board for the pole.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Michigan too, because Michigan and Auto Club are almost considered sister tracks. And as you said, he put on a show for us at Auto Club, just weathering the storm, at Michigan, weathering the storm that race was. So yeah, that's the reason why he's in my top 2 to win this afternoon.
So before we go green real quickly, too, we've got drivers that are battling for playoff positions to get into the Final Four. But we saw last time out at Martinsville, Ryan Lutz, who's rolling off from 5th. He was a non-playoff contender, and he took a checkered flag. Do you see someone like Lutz or another non-playoff driver maybe stealing away a win here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Ryan Lutz could do it. He's starting up near the front there in the 5th position. There's no reason to count him out or any of the non-playoff drivers here as we come down to take the green.
The laps of racing are ready to be run. The green flag's in the air, and we are racing in the second round of the playoffs. And look at the teammates going to go 1-2 there. Lytle and Frankenfield looks like they're going to maybe have a strategy here to break away from everybody else.
Yeah, it should be steady as she goes here at the start. The car should be feeling pretty light for these drivers here on cold tires. I expect everybody to take it easy as we have the 10 couple cars sliding off of turn 2 there.
Rexing in the 10 and Goodman in the 73. The 10 saved it. I don't know if Goodman did or not.
I believe he did. Yeah, he got it together. It certainly hurt him. He's by himself there rounding turn 3 and 4, but he was able to take care of the car and keep his race together.
He almost had contact again there. Jared Rexing almost sliding up into Dustin Dewar. Looked like he almost got sideways again. So a lot of drivers early on, as you mentioned, with the colder tires, the new tires, kind of battling the looseness of the race car. But one thing that we mentioned is when we get longer into a run, the tires start to heat up and they get a little bit more grip. We're going to start seeing all these bottom feeders kind of testing that third and fourth groove on the top side.
Yeah, for sure. This is, there's practically 5 lanes to work with, being the wall, the wall being one of them on occasion. So like you said, the tires are going to come in, the guys are going to start feeling a little more confident, and they're going to start trying to put down a little line of rubber up top there so that they have multiple grooves to work with, because right now it's just one groove, and that's the only place that there's rubber in from qualifying. So that's the only place they're going to be running right now.
Fortunately, we had some near misses there, but we are still green. I do want to point one thing out here off of the Martinsville race. I know it was a long time ago and people may not necessarily remember, but we had a 3-way tie for the final playoff position between Leniger, Rucker, and Clark. And we didn't get the confirmation until after the broadcast went off the air of who was moving on. Obviously, Leniger in the 12 and Rucker in the 64. And the reason that Clark did not move on despite being tied with those two for the final playoff spot of moving on was actually based on finishing results in that round. Leniger had a 5th at Kansas, Rucker had a 3rd at Kansas. Best finish of the round of 14 for Clark was 9th. That's why he did not advance.
Yeah, and that's, there's certainly no more exciting way to end a round of the postseason with a 3-way tie like that. It puts all the drivers on edge, knowing whether or not they're going to make it onto the next round. But yeah, we'll hope to see this round play out just as close as that last round.
You know, it's got to get these playoff drivers remaining, got to get them thinking too, because, maybe they may not necessarily have a car good enough to win the race, but they got to think, okay, I've got at least a car that can finish 3rd. I got to make sure I don't tear the car up and lose any positions, because they don't want to be in that kind of a situation when we get to Atlanta. They don't want to get eliminated by someone that had a better finish than them in this round.
Yeah, exactly, Seth. And the thing I like most about this chase system too is that each of these 2 rounds, it's like the start of a brand new mini season. The points reset. And you can almost, like you said, if you don't feel like your car is good enough to win compared to how others are running, you can almost points race for yourself and build yourself a gap to the next guy behind, and just prepare yourself to not be in that kind of a position when it comes down to crunch time in Atlanta.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at 2 drivers in particular that had wins back during the first, or actually one driver actually had 1 win. The other one had a big points lead, and they've got a pretty good points lead coming to this one as well. Frankenfield and David Tooker, the 2 of them are 31 and 22 points ahead of the 9th driver, Andrew Rucker. So with where they're currently running right now, Frankenfield currently in 3rd and Tooker in 9th, if they can continue good, consistent finishes here, they may not even have to win their way into the round of 4. They may be able to point their way in, depending on if we have maybe only 2 winners of playoff contenders in this round.
Yeah, exactly. And the other, to that point, there's 9 drivers in contention for this championship right now, and in a way, that sets a driver's mind at ease. You kind of tell yourself, okay, there will at least be 3 drivers I know will guarantee themselves a spot in the next round. The other drivers, I just have to points race. So going back to our previous point about maybe your car is not as good as you would hope it to be to win the race, you can points race and try and position yourself to finish inside that top 5 or top 3 even, just to give yourself a buffer to those other drivers that maybe aren't going to win their way into the final 4.
Tell you what, a couple of playoff contenders are up here at the front fighting, and right now Jarrett Campbell is searching. He has tried the top side, not been able to make it work. He's trying the bottom, and Tate Lytle's still been able to beat him back to the throttle off of turns 2 and 4. Campbell seems to have a little bit better of a race car. He just isn't able to pick the line he wants to be able to get around the 56.
Yeah, there's just not enough rubber built up yet to try and make any other lines work. Guys are still getting loose off of 2 and 4, or still getting tight because they're trying to try a groove that just isn't in the racetrack yet. You see him get a huge run up on the 55 just then, or the 56. But like you said, there's not enough rubber down to really do anything with that run just yet.
This may be a rhetorical question, but I'm just going to throw this out there here in your mind as a driver. We've seen it happen before in the actual NASCAR Cup Series. There's actually a 6th groove over in 3 and 4. We've seen drivers go down below that white line to try and make a pass. Do you think anybody might try and use that apron down there?
Oh, it's the chase. I'm sure somebody will try it, but I mean, it's so slippery down there. Even if your car is hooked up, it's still so slick. At a track like Auto Club in Michigan, drivers will try it because the banking is there's so little banking. But I mean, it's one of those things. When you're in time of desperation, you'll try anything. So yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we'll see somebody attempt to pass on that apron coming out of turn 4. So it's definitely not out of the question.
Campbell got a heck of a run off of 4, slingshot to the inside, and looks like he may clear the 56 here off of turn 2. Let's see if Tate Lytle can battle back on the top side.
He's going to get a run there. He kept it off the wall. Looks like that outside groove might be coming in slightly here. It's starting to pick up.
We're going to see if Tate's going to run the risk of trying to pinch the 31 down. No, I think the 31's got him cleared. Lead changed. It'll be Campbell going back to the front. Now, let's see if Tate Lytle's got a car that can wrestle the lead back.
This track is just, it's like a longer version of Richmond. It's just famous for the crossover, as you saw right there. Tate Lytle back to the inside of Jared Campbell. If you don't get a monstrous run off of the corner on the guy you're making a pass on, you better be prepared to defend that inside for the crossover just like this. Looks like Jared's going to be able to hold him off for the time being, though.
All this crossing over and side drafting, much like a super speedway, air plays a big part into this type of racing, and you saw when the 31 and the 56 were side by side, that allowed Frankenfield in third to start closing in just a little bit on these top 2.
Yeah, and you'll see guys doing that all race long, chasing each other down from the top of the racetrack to the bottom, especially on this front straightaway here to get themselves a run into turn 1. You don't see it as much on the backstretch for some reason because it's a straightaway. It tends to have more effect in the corners whenever you side draft with another car. So that's why you'll see it more on this front stretch than you will on the backstretch.
You have a driver that is already retired from the race, and that I believe is the Chris W. Jordan. Yep, yeah, the 4 of Chris W. Jordan. One thing that I did notice here in our top 10, 7 of the top 10 are playoff contenders. 2 drivers that are missing. 13th place Andrew Rucker and Kendall Noah Player just lost the 16th position. He's now back to 17th. I know it's early on in this race, but with it being such a wide track and us going into this long green flag run at this point, would you be a little bit worried that your car is only able to run where it is outside of the top 10?
Not necessarily. We are only 13 laps in. It could be something as simple as tire conservation. This track likes to eat up tires if you drive it too hard. As looking back at Kendall Noah Player, he's actually, it seems to be trying to work in that top line. So he's probably just taking his time, taking care of his tires, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing to be worried about. It's lap 13 of an 80-lap race at a 2-mile track. Once those, we'll be able to tell later in the run here if the tire conservation works. You should be able to start driving through the field here pretty easily.
Good side-by-side battle here between Ethan Burrell and Chad Frankenfield for third place. Ethan comes into this race 7th right now of the playoff contenders, and he was really a contender for the wins back in the early portion of the regular season. Been pretty quiet here during the playoffs, but now looks like he's realizing I got to win to get into the Final 4.
Yeah, for sure. And if he doesn't, he's got to make sure he's...
Oh, we got to let the leaders around! Of Lytle. Top 2 have spun. We're still green.
Yeah, I don't believe that's going to bring out a caution, Seth. It's out of the racing groove. It's way down on the apron. Oh, I spoke too soon. Out. Caution's out.
31 came back up the racetrack. It brought out the caution. But that was the top 2. And it looked like that's one other thing about this type of a racetrack. You make those really quick moves, and sometimes the car you're battling isn't able to react in time. I think Tate Lytle, if I saw it live, he just stepped out real quick, and Campbell went to block him, and the 2 of them made contact.
You know what? It looks like the opposite, Seth. Tate Lytle made that move too quick, and he's just lost control of the car, and it swerved back up into Jared. And that can happen.
Overcorrected a little.
Yeah, that can happen here early in the run. This is still fairly early in a run here at Auto Club, so it's possible the car just got light on him.
Now, the good news in all of this is there's that long enough area down to the safer barrier, and neither car hit the inside wall. They didn't make any contact with any other car, so I think they're okay. The bad news is they lost a ton of positions on track because of this.
Yeah, it's certainly gonna be a blow for track position. But as you said, both cars are still intact, and that's the best thing. They'll pit for tires and they'll fix whatever little cosmetic damage they both got. But they're still in this race and they're still in this championship.
We saw that good battle going on between Ethan Burrell and Chad Frankenfield. Little did we know that 2 laps later, that was going to be the battle for the race lead.
Yeah, exactly. You're sitting there battling hard for third place, and all of a sudden you see the leader spin into the inside wall. You're like, oh, well, that worked out well. I'm glad I raced that hard.
We ran 15 laps there before our first caution of the evening. Looks like the 20 is going to stay out and lead a lap. He'll undoubtedly be on pit road next time around. So now these drivers have gotten an opportunity to see what their cars are like as far as handling as the tires wear down. I'm almost wondering if now we may see a little bit more of an aggressive type of racing out of these guys now that they kind of know what's underneath them.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible that you could. But again, it's all going to depend on the track state. Like how much rubber is down. I'm starting to see a little bit of an outside groove form. So guys might start be a little more aggressive on this restart, start trying to drive around each other on the outside. But it's all about how those tires feel. I still think those tires are going to be very, especially since pretty much the whole field pit under that caution. Tires are going to be really, really cold. So it's going to be pretty slippery out there for the next couple of laps.
You see right here with our track info, outside temperature 77 degrees, but with the amount of time that these cars were running under green for those 15 laps, the track temperature 3 degrees over. It's now starting to cool a little bit here, but it'll probably jump back up once we get these cars racing again. And it looks like Ethan Burrell did win the battle off pit road.
Yeah, it's just going to say track is at a crisp 79 degrees right now. It's good track temp for nighttime racing, especially at a track like Auto Club like this. Not a lot of grip out there, so this is it's certainly playing in the driver's favor.
One thing that I think is going to be a little bit interesting, we were documenting back about Rucker and Kendall Noah Player being back outside of the top 10. You mentioned about the 94 running up there in those higher grooves. Wonder if he laid down enough rubber to maybe start making a charge up into the top 10 now.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to do it by yourself, but if enough guys run up there to start building that groove in there, he was the only one I saw doing it consistently. But if enough guys start running up top there, a groove will come in. And I have a feel he's probably going to try it again here on this restart, see how he does. He looked like he was maintaining some pretty good pace up there, so we'll see what the game plan is here.
See right there, Jared Campbell and Tate Lytle. They were first and second before the caution came out. Now you got to put a 2 in front of their running order number, 21st and 22nd. And we know that these two guys were racing each other really hard up there at the front, but they technically had clean air. Now they're going to be back in traffic. It's going to be interesting to see how quickly they're able to work their way back up through the field. Yeah,
it just depends on how their cars felt in clean air too, whereas if they were... the cars tend to do the opposite of each other when you're in dirty air. If you're loose in clean air, you're probably going to be tight in dirty air and vice versa. So we'll see how these guys fare back here way in the pack.
If we look at our remaining playoff contenders, we've got Ethan Burrell going to restart in first, Frankenfield in second, Leniger in fourth, Tooker fifth, Riggs will restart in sixth, Rucker will complete the top 10 in 10th place, and then you got to go quite a ways back before you find Kendall Noah Player, and then of course Campbell and Lytle going to be starting back in 21st and 22nd. But I think right now it's going to be interesting to see, because we saw early on, let's not forget, our first lap was not without incident. We had a couple of cars get loose off of turn 2 in Rexing and Goodman. You gotta wonder, with it being a double file restart here, are we going to see drivers have that same loose condition on new tires when we get back green?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's racer mentality. You're bunched up like you are now on every restart. You're going to want to try and get as many positions as possible, especially here early on where track position is so important because there's so few grooves out there right now. Guys are still going to try and be aggressive on the bottom and make their cars stick off the corner. So I will not be surprised if we see the same thing we saw on lap 1 off of 2.
So we mentioned earlier about Ethan Burrell kind of feeling like he's kind of in a must-win situation to get into the Final Four. I would kind of put the same kind of pressure on the 12 of Damian Leniger, because the last 4 weeks have kind of been all about last chances for him. He barely made it into the playoffs with his win in the final regular season race at Daytona. And then you go back to Martinsville, It was only his 5th place finish in that round at Kansas that allowed him to move in through the tiebreaker between himself, Rucker, and Clark. So with him up here in 4th, I think he's kind of realizing he's kind of used up his horseshoe. Now he needs to get up there, and he needs to make something happen to be able to battle for the championship at Homestead.
Yeah, for sure. You only get so many of those horseshoes that you can use in the postseason, and you hit the nail on the head. I think he's used it up already. He's got to go for it now.
We are getting ready to go green yet again here. It will be on lap 19, and Ethan Burrell is going to get away. And it looks like kind of what we had on the initial restart, 2 Fords working together. Now we got a couple of Supras working together, the 37 and the 66, and maybe add the 19 into that.
Yeah, for sure. Great restart from Burrell. He can just drive his stuff off the corner. He got nothing to worry about on his outside. That's tight in the pack. We got a wreck off of 2. There they go.
That's Matthew Weeks and Logan Shea, the 11 and the 6. Looks like they're the only 2, and it brings out the 2nd yellow flag.
I told you. I knew it. It's just a racer mentality. It's you trying to gain as many spots as you can, and stuff like that just happens. It's just the way it is, especially on cold tires.
And a lot of times too, there's no warning. All of a sudden, you just feel the car get light, and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, there's no saving it. I mean, that's exactly what happened with the 6. I'm sure he felt it going for a second there, but then, I mean, when it gets to a certain point, there's only so much you can do to save it, and he was just along for the ride. The poor 12 had nowhere, the 11 had nowhere to go. Just deer in the headlights, pretty much.
Right here, yeah. I mean, he's committed to that inside line, and you just have to hope that no one's going to spin down in front of you. Unfortunately, that was not the case for Matthew Weeks. Looks like both cars didn't sustain a whole lot of damage. I might be a little bit worried about the right front damage on the 11 car, but for the most part, not a whole lot of heavy contact for either machine.
Yeah, that's a big hit for the 11. So if I'm him, I'm certainly a little worried about what that did to my engine damage and my performance going forward. It looks like, I'm just watching the onboard here to see kind of the revs that he's turning here. It looks like he's doing okay. He might be fine. The optional damage should fix whatever, if any, internal damage he sustained.
We're on board here with Matthew Weeks, and you can just see no reaction time. And yeah, you're right. There is actually some pretty extensive damage to that right front. You can clearly see it from inside the cockpit. One thing, too, if you go back to the incident between Campbell and Tate Lytle, not only did it lose them a lot of track position, but it put them back behind this incident. They could very well have gotten swept up in this. Fortunately for them, they weren't, but that's kind of a risk you run if you lose all of those positions on track.
Yeah, for sure. And those moments like that always make your heart skip a few beats when you're in playoff contention. You have an incident, you get thrown into the back of the pack, and then something like that happens as soon as you go to green. It's a scary situation.
We've kind of gone inside some of the drivers' heads, like Ethan Burrell, Damian Laniger. Let's go inside another driver's head. Right now, running in the 8th position is Andrew Rucker. Now, he comes into this race 9th of the 9 playoff contenders. And we saw him at first outside the top 10. He's now worked his way into the top 10. I mean, is this a go for broke kind of thing for the 64, or is he looking for consistency, do you think? Because I almost don't think that he's in a position with the bonus points so many people racked up in that first round. I almost don't think he's got a chance of pointing his way in. Yeah,
it's a tough decision he has to make, because here's the fork in the road that he's faced with. If he goes for broke here, one of two things can happen. It could pay off immensely for him, whether that's winning the race or finishing well, or going for broke usually means you're ultra aggressive, and when you're ultra aggressive, stuff happens sometimes. And if something were to happen to him where he finishes poorly, because he's 9th in the points right now, or last in the final 9, that point gap becomes almost insurmountable. And you're right, he wouldn't be able to points race in. So he would be then in a must-win situation if something were to happen to him. So as a driver, if I'm in his shoes, I'm going to do my best to take care of my car, put myself in a position towards the end of this race where then I have a chance to go for the win. So I'm going to race hard to keep myself in the top 10 and then think about whether or not I want to go for it later on in the race.
The one thing I would say to his credit is the last speedway we were at was Kansas, and he brought it home 3rd, so he knows how to get around the speedway type tracks. So maybe we haven't yet seen what the 64 has under the hood. Maybe he was kind of just lying in wait, riding around, and maybe as we get closer to the end of this race, we'll really see what he's able to bring to the table. Maybe he'll be up there in the top 3 again, but as of right now, I kind of agree with you. In order to finish first, you have to first finish. So yeah, I'm not sure I would exactly press the panic button yet, but definitely have to be aware of the fact that I don't think with a lot of the guys like Frankenfield, like Tooker, Riggs, Campbell, I don't think you're going to be able to catch them points-wise and wrestle a top 4 spot in the playoffs away from them that way.
Right, yeah, and yeah, you're absolutely right. He wouldn't be able to points race for these first 3 races unless something happens to the guys in front of him. If that's the case, then it's a whole new different ball game. But as he sits right now, to put it in perspective, he's 31 points behind Chad Frankenfield in that first position. So that's pretty much a win to get to that first place in the standings. So race like you're points racing for the first half of the race, and then see where he's sitting, and then make your decision from there. In my mind.
You mentioned points racing, and one thing I've kind of noticed here is that none of the playoff contenders, at least some of those that are running back, outside the top 5, none of them have really rolled the dice and, come to pit or road a lap later, stay out and get a bonus point. The only driver that's really done that was Demon Tova, but he's not a playoff contender. That's a bonus point if you lead a lap, so I'm surprised maybe somebody like Kendall, Noah Player, or maybe Rucker, that they didn't stay out an extra lap, maybe get that bonus point, because if it does come down to a point situation, you want to get every possible point you can.
Yeah, for sure, and we might see that on one of those mid-range runs. If we go green here for about 10, 12 laps, you might see, or maybe not quite that much, maybe 8 to 7 laps, you might see some of those guys like Andrew Rucker or Damian Leniger stay out and lead a lap. But in a situation like this, nobody's going to come to pit road, so everybody's going to stay out. But and in a situation like we had on that first run, 18 laps were on the tires, so everybody's going to come to pit road. And if you stay out, you don't want to sacrifice the track position that you worked so hard to get in those 18 laps too. So
Eden Burrell's going to get ready to put us back under green, and before we ended up having that wreck on the back straightaway, I was going to mention I'd be a little bit worried if I'm the rest of the field with this 37 out in front, because it looked like back during that first 15-lap run, he had the best long-run machine, so if he gets out ahead of everybody, he might start checking out, and he's going to get us going again and gets another good restart.
Yeah, he's got a good car in clean air, and he's certainly making the most of it right now with the starts he's been getting. It's a very clean start for the top 5. Everybody's able to get spread out there. You see a little bit of a battle behind him there between Chad Frankenfield and David Tooker on the restart. But it's a clean getaway up at the front.
We're back to that race at Tsukuba between Frankenfield and Tooker. That photo finish, closest finish we've had all season. Frankenfield's going to wrestle away the 3rd spot from the 19. It's like we're starting to see a couple of drivers move up to that second groove here in the early portions. I would kind of think everyone would still bottom feed, because we didn't even get a green flag lap in on that last restart, and with running under pacing, I would think the tires would still be kind of cool.
Yeah, the caution periods are a good opportunity to get some heat into the tires, so they're being a little more racy on this restart because those tires have a little more heat in them. So we're going to start to see guys move up a lane, maybe 2. This is around the time where that starts to happen in races like this.
We have no caution, but something might have happened to the 94 of Kendall Noah Player, one of our playoff contenders. He's right now at the tail end of the field and has lost a huge amount of ground from the rest of the pack. So a little bit of issue for him.
Yeah, he got the car just stepped out on him entering turn 1. He entered it a little above that groove, Seth, and there's still some marbles up there, and it really upset the handling of the car, and he just chased it all the way up the racetrack into the outside wall. A pretty big knock as well, so that's a little worrisome for Kendall Noah Player.
Like he's folded that right rear quarter panel in on that Valvoline machine, and that is a tough break for him, especially the fact that he came into this race outside of the top 4, 6th in the overall standings, our Pocono winner. I think he's hoping for a caution right now, because not only has he lost a lot of ground on track, I don't necessarily think that car's going to be 100% up to speed with the damage sustained. That's going to hurt him aerodynamically.
Yeah, and I'm watching him right now. He is loose halfway through the corner. That thing is not hooking up whatsoever. So he is begging for, if he could drive this thing on his knees and pray, he would be doing that right now to get a caution. I mean, it is just that loose for him.
And now we got a battle brewing here for the lead. We've also got a good battle going on for third, and we're looking here at Jared Campbell starting to slightly work his way up through the field along with Tate Lytle. They are now in 14th and 15th position. Still a long ways to go for them, but we're now going to get to see just how good of cars they have back in traffic, as I think Frankenfield may have just gotten the wall off of turn 4 in this battle with Damian Leniger.
Yeah, it's getting racy up at the front, that's for sure. Guys are starting to get comfortable with how the track feels and how their cars feel, so guys are starting to make some moves and push the car a little bit to get away from one another, and we're gonna be seeing a little more contact with the wall here for sure. The 10 just about got it too. Jared Rexing inches from that turn 2 wall.
Up here in the middle of this battle, got a lot of playoff contenders all in this mix here, in Frankenfield, Leniger, Tooker, as well as Rucker and Riggs. We've also got Ryan Lutz starting to little by little close in onto the 37. And remember back at Martinsville, the first elimination race, he played spoiler. He's the only non-playoff driver to win a playoff race this season. And if he ends up winning, then that puts us into only 2 drivers that could confirm themselves via a win into the playoffs. Because, if we get into next week and a non-playoff driver wins, that means only 1 playoff contender gets into the Final Four with a win.
Yeah, and that's when it gets really exciting, because that's when the racing amps up. It becomes 2 races essentially, Seth. You've got the race, and then you've got the race within the race with all the points drivers. You get 3 non-points drivers winning in these next 3 races. The guy that finishes second could essentially be considered your race winner, because he's the one that's going to be moving on to the next round. So it'll really make things interesting.
The battle going on right here with Vincent Isabella in the 13 and Josh Robin in the 2. Robin, of course, was a prime contender for the win back at Martinsville a few weeks ago. But right behind them is Joshua Clark, who got eliminated from the playoffs. So now if you're Clark, what's your mindset for the rest of the season, knowing now you don't have a championship to battle for?
You're out there with a vengeance. You're upset because you're not racing these guys anymore, right? So, I mean, it's win or bust, really. It's you've got nothing to lose. So he's definitely thinking win here this afternoon, and he's going to try and be one of those spoilers, maybe playing some fuel strategy here later on in the race.
It's not even you got eliminated because, you had a bad performance during that round of 14. You got eliminated in a tiebreaker, a 3-way tiebreaker. I mean, that's got to be even worse. And I think we had an issue with Ryan Lutz. He is dropping back quickly. I wonder if he might have slapped the wall.
Yeah, it certainly looks as that's the case. Let's taking a look here.
Back to 7th place as of right now. It's where it looks like he's going to recover to for the moment.
Yeah, it looks like he just got freight trained. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Forgetting that when a car blinks, it brings out smoke on the track. I thought we had a spin just ahead of the cars we were focused on for the moment.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. And there's nothing more unnerving than a driver seeing that in front of you, thinking somebody's going around just a couple cars ahead of you. So, but yeah, I'm not sure what happened with Ryan Lutz. Maybe he just felt unsteady about the car and let those guys by. Not sure what went on there.
We just had a car overstep the cushion. That's the 2 of Josh Robin. He's dropping like a rock now. He went into about the 3rd or 4th groove into turn 3 and lost 3 positions as a result. He's now back to about the 15th position.
And that just goes to show guys are getting we saw it with Kendall Noah Player on the restart. Guys are getting out of that rubber groove, that dark patch on the track, and there's just nothing up there but marbles right now. So it seems to only be about a 2, maybe 2.5 lane racetrack right now. So it's not quite rubbered in just yet.
About Andrew Rucker. Finished 3rd at Kansas. We were kind of wondering why he wasn't up here inside the top 5. Well, there he is. He's now in the 5th position, trying to run down Jared Rexing for 4th place. So doesn't look like he's feeling the pressure at the moment of coming in dead last of the remaining playoff contenders.
No, and I mean, I love being proven wrong. I thought for sure he was just going to race nice and slowly and just kind of ride around in the top 10, but I love seeing him go get him. He's making a charge to the front, that's for sure.
I also am noticing Tyler Riggs up here in 6th, and I think we're seeing him maybe race a little bit more aggressively than he would. It seems like this season his forte especially has been the shorter tracks or the tracks where you have those heavy braking zones. We do have Iowa coming up next week, but it's not really like the smaller tracks that we've been at earlier on this year. So I'm almost thinking he's looking at these bigger tracks like Auto Club, like Atlanta, and he's realizing, okay, I know that I can run well at Iowa, but I still got to perform well at these bigger tracks too.
Yeah, for sure. You can't in the postseason and like this, and when you're in a position like he is, you can't circle tracks on the calendar anymore. I mean, you can, but you can't race with that mindset. Okay, I need to just have a decent finish here, and then I'll go out and win next week. You've got to go into every single week with a winning mentality or a winning mentality and race as hard as you can every single lap. There's no more, okay, I'll just wait for this race to come up. You got to go every single race.
Absolutely, and to your point, back when the playoffs began, we talked to Tyler Riggs. We said in the first round of the playoffs, where are you looking most forward to going? He said Martinsville. He got involved, I think it was in the second caution at Martinsville, and was back in the pack for a majority of that race. He did manage to fight his way up to a somewhat decent finish, but he was damaged in that race. So, yeah, to your point, you can't circle tracks anymore, especially with the fact there's only 4 spots up for grab now as opposed to 9 back when we were in the first round.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to Ryan Lutz, he's continued to fall back into this field here, Seth, and I noticed a little bit of right rear damage. Maybe that has something to do with it. I know we were unsure about what might have happened, so it looks like he might have had a run-in with a car a few laps ago that we just didn't see.
As this run goes on, you start to see who are the better cars for the long run, who are the better cars for the short run. One car or another that seems to be falling off, not as much visibly, but I am noticing getting reeled in, is Chad Frankenfield. That battle for third place is starting to close up between himself and the 10 of Rexing.
Yeah, and I noticed it at the restart. Jared kind of backed off. He was kind of running up top and letting guys go, taking care of his tires. We touched on it here earlier in the show, how guys they'd play it safe on these short runs, or maybe they just didn't have the best car on the short runs because they couldn't figure it out on the new tires. This is about the point in the run where we'll start to see who's driving hard and eating up their tires and who's kind of going smooth and steady and letting those tires come in later in the race and start to make up some spots.
This is now also the longest run we have been on as far as green flag racing. We had 15 laps before the first caution. We are now on the 17th lap of this green flag run, so we're definitely now starting to see who's going to be able to save their tires, and of course as well, potentially when green flag pit stops might come into play. We talk about all the time when we come to different racetracks of just how difficult it is to get onto pit road. Where would you say the pit road at Auto Club fits on the scale of difficulty?
It's a good question. It's not a very banked track, so getting down onto the apron is easier than most. I'd say about maybe between turn 3 and 4 is when you'll start to see guys braking and really slowing down. It is a pretty quick pit road speed. I believe it's, if I could be wrong, I believe it's 50 miles an hour on pit road here. Just checking
50 or 55, one or the other.
Yeah, pit speed 55 mile an hour. So it's not like you're braking down to 30 or 45 miles an hour. So it's not an incredibly difficult pit road, but it does get a little bit slippery on that bottom groove off of turn 4 because it doesn't get used a whole lot during the race. So the possibility of locking up your tires and going into a spin is not out of the question.
The one thing I would kind of look at this, very much like a super speedway. These guys are going almost about 180 tops on the straightaways. They're going down to about 160 in the corners. You got to remember that you've got to get that car from 160 miles per hour down to 55 miles per hour before you get to pit road. Otherwise, a pit penalty could really hurt you.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why, especially if the pack is still as close as it is later in the run when guys are going to start pitting, calling out your pits is so important because if you're running the bottom with guys behind you, like I said, middle of 3 and 4 is when you're going to start braking to get down to pit road, And that's also when guys are starting to accelerate to get off the corner with a good run. So if guys in front of you are not aware of you coming into pit on that lap, it's very easy to get yourself run over coming into the pits.
No, we've got here with 2020, with the new year, we've got this new ticker here, which is incredible. We were able to see not only where the running order is, but also the top 3 on the top of the ticker. And as I'm watching this, I'm noticing that Leniger seems to have a really good car for straightaway speed, but he loses a lot of ground to the 37 of Ethan Burrell when they go through the corners.
Yeah, I was starting to notice that too. And again, it could be something as simple as tires, or just the way their car is handling, the way they're driving their race car. It could be a whole bunch of different factors, but that's certainly something to keep an eye on here as the run goes on.
To go back and slap past me in the face because I was saying it looked like the 15 was falling off. I think he was saving because all of a sudden he's on a charge on Leniger for second.
Yeah, he's either saving Seth or he's letting his tires cool off, because this track likes to eat up the tires even if you don't think you're running all that hard. So he could have been backing off to try and let his tires get some get cooled off a little bit, and now he's making a charge again because he noticed that 10 of Jared Rexing was closing in and taking a sniff on his back bumper.
It showed for a brief moment back there. Jared Campbell, how about the comeback for the 56 and the 31, the 2 drivers that were wrecking while battling for the lead that brought out our first caution? They've now worked their way from 21st and 22nd up to 8th and 9th, so they are slowly charging up. If we get a caution and they're able to line back up in the top 10, you gotta think they're gonna be back at the front before this thing's over.
And it's I find it so ironic that they're running consecutive positions, 8th and 9th, because they seem to be the 2 fastest cars in this race right now. So I'm curious to see if they can get through this top 10, if they're going to march their way back to the 1 and 2 positions.
Right there, that last lap, it looks like Ethan Burrell was the fastest car on track. Second fastest was Tate Lytle back in the 8th position. As a matter of fact, again, both Burrell and Lytle were the only 2 cars that lap to run in the 42.3s. So even though he's back in traffic, that 56 is fast, and I'd be a little bit worried if I'm the 37, because if he gets up to 3rd or 4th place, he's going to have much more clean racetrack. You got to think he might have something for Ethan Burrell.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, for all they know, this could be going green to the end. So there's no saving tires for that 56. He is going. So we're past halfway, lap 45, 35 laps to go. He's got no time to take it easy. He's got to go.
All right, so let's talk about the scenario of possible green flag pit stops. A lot of times at these bigger racetracks, drivers try and short pit, try and jump the competition and get those fresh tires. Who do you look at back here to maybe try that strategy?
Well, to that point, and I'm not sure if it's scheduled, Ken the Noah player is on pit road. He's fixed. It's been a long stop, Seth, so I think he's fixing that right rear damage he has. He's already lost a lap, and he's actually going to lose 2 laps here to Ethan Burrell as he comes around. He's still sitting in his box, so this is going to be very, very costly for him going forward and in this playoffs.
Definitely is. Kendall Noah, player who ended up winning in that multiple green-white checker finish back at Pocono. This is, I would assume, going to drop him down to probably 9th of the 9 playoff contenders going into Iowa next week. He was only 10 points ahead of 9th place coming into this race, Andrew Rucker. And unless we end up having some wrecked race cars here in the closing stages of this race, looks like he's going to finish way down in the results.
Yeah, and it's we talked about it at the top of the show. This is going to put him in one of those situations that you really don't want to put yourself in. As we see him go a 3rd lap down, he's going to definitely be looking at a must-win scenario here for the next 2 weeks at Iowa and then in Atlanta.
This battle for second has been really good between Leniger and Frankenfield. Frankenfield trying to get that lower groove working, but you can see as the tires have warmed up and that second groove has gotten more rubber, Leniger's been able to hold Frankenfield at bay. He's been able to utilize the side draft, especially down on the front straightaway. I think Frankenfield might be getting a little bit frustrated here, but he's got to, again, remember the big picture, because we know at least one driver is going to make it into the playoffs through points, and Frankenfield comes in as the points leader.
Yep, for sure, absolutely, and he's in the best position to be the points racer here, because he had a commanding. It doesn't sound very big, but at this point system, it is a commanding 9-point lead over David Tooker. So he's in all the position in the world to just kind of race his own race and sneak in there on points.
I know this isn't a short track. This is a speedway, but it almost looks like Frankenfield's almost willing to move the 12 out of the way. He's been running very close to his back bumper, maybe trying to get the momentum to make the slingshot, but boy, it's kind of made me nervous, especially being that close through the corners.
Well, and exactly, and Damian Leneger's not a guy that's going to just let him go. He's in the same position as Chad is, only further down in the standings. He's got to go out and win this race here too to put himself in a very comfortable spot for the next 2 weeks. So he is not going to give up this spot easily. As we see the battle side by side in the two, Damian might try a crossover here coming off of turn 2.
The 15 is going to clear. We'll see if Leneker can get back to the throttle soon enough to cross over. Doesn't look like he's quite going to be able to here. Let's see if he's going to try and charge back, or has Frankenfield firmly taken control of second place. I'm also noticing it looks like Rexing back there is kind of running a little bit of an IndyCar line. He seems to duck the car down to the inside down the straightaways there. I don't know if it's necessarily the handling is causing his car to go down there, or if he's doing that on purpose. There's another car on pit road. I can't tell who that is.
It looks like it's the 94 of Kendall Noah Player. He's finally moving off of the pits. Oh, well, you're talking, sorry. That's Tyler Riggs in the 26 car on pit road behind him there.
That is the start, I believe, of pit stops. I think Jared Campbell has also made a pit stop. Yes, he has. So the 26 and the 31 are the two playoff contenders that are going to be the ones to short pit. And I believe we have run, I want to say it's 29 laps here on this green flag run. This puts them right on the cusp. If this is the furthest they can go, it puts them on the cusp, unless this is as far as this is like where the window opens for them to make it the rest of the way.
Well, yeah, and Tyler Riggs' last pit on that last caution, which came on lap 20, or excuse me, looks like it was on lap... Yeah, it was lap 20 to 23. So he pit somewhere in that time frame. I can't tell by his lap times. It looks like it might have been lap 22. So you're exactly right. It looks like it's about 20 laps, 29 laps or so.
Oh, we got it! Wow!
Saved it.
I think he saved it. We also had Tate Lytle on pit road. That's gonna obviously hurt Ryan Lutz. That's gonna lose him spots as he didn't make it to pit road entrance. Lytle has made his pit stop. He's now into his pit box. We'll see
Gerald
if anybody
Campbell
else
as well. David Tooker.
Campbell back in again?
I'm sorry?
Back. Is Campbell back on pit road again? Because he was just on pit road the lap before. So maybe he's serving a pass-through.
I think you... I'm only showing him scored a lap down.
Right. Yep. So he's already made his stop then.
Yeah. It looks like he's all good. He's only come in. We'll see if he ducks in here. It doesn't look like he is. Nope. I think all is good there. Nice clean stop for the 31.
David Tooker in the 19 has also come to pit road for his pit stop. So 4 of our playoff contenders have hit pit road.
Yeah, Tate Lytle's been down already. Looks like he and Jared might have pit together as well, because, excuse me, they both pit on that last caution because they were near the back. They topped off on fuel, so they might be running similar strategies here as they continue their march toward the front.
Rexing giving up, I believe it was the 4th position to make his pit stop. Now we wait to see, when does the race leader come down?
Yes, that is the question. Absolutely, it's he was one of the, he did not pit on that last caution.
Got a car in the wall, saved it. That was Bonsignor off of 4.
Okay. Big knock to that right side, a lot of damage. He hit that wall a ton.
Oh, he's gonna... Oh, my goodness gracious sakes alive. He's gonna spin it. He's gonna spin it. That might bring out a yellow. It will.
Wow. That could... Wow. That could mix things up quite a bit. Oh, and he's gonna retire.
Yeah, that changes everything, because there are a lot of drivers that were trapped a lap down because of this. Campbell, Lytle, Riggs. I mean, they probably will be able to take the wave around, but that loses them a lot of track position.
Yeah, for sure. And Ethan Burrell, Damian Leniger, Reisner, all of these guys are just they're stoked that they decided to stay out as long as they did. And that's always the gamble you take whenever green flag stops start to cycle through, is how long do you stay out and hope for a caution during the cycle.
It's hard to tell here if Bond Sr. maybe was trying to come back to pit road. I think he had already made a pit stop. Maybe he was coming to serve a pass-through or something, but much like we saw with Ryan Lutz, just the car got light on him there in the center of the corner as he started to brake and went around on him.
Yeah, I mean, he hit that turn 4 wall really hard and driving in the corner the same way as he normally would, and the aero damage just does not allow you to do that. So, I mean, there's no chance of making that corner the same way.
Looks like Bond Sr. has actually taken his car to pit road. I don't know if he's taken it out of the race or not.
Yes, he has
a couple
retired.
of drivers. He has. So that's actually, it may not seem like much, but that's a point that Kendall Noah player could pick up in the finishing results.
I'm going to correct you on that one. Kendall Noah player has also retired from the race. He is 10 laps down. He is no longer in this race. So that's a huge blow.
That's gonna make his task really tough going into Iowa and Atlanta for sure.
Yes, it's now a must-win scenario for Kendall, unfortunately, and but that's the great thing about this chase is you still got 2 races to go out there and win. He's certainly not out of it. It just makes his job a lot harder the next 2 weeks.
Well, it looks like Chad Frankenfield actually won the battle off pit road. So he's going to restart the leader. A lot of drivers got to take the wave around. I think we had 11 cars in the lead lap when that caution came out. So Campbell, Rucker, Clark, Lytle, Riggs, Isabella, Dementova, Kosla, Tooker, they're all going to be able to go around and get their lap back, I do believe. I'm not certain who even the free pass car was.
Yeah, I believe it was Jared Campbell was the free pass, got the lucky dog, so he's back on the lead lap. But Chad Frankenfield stayed out. He did not come in under that caution.
You're right.
Ethan Burrell was the first one off of pit road.
You're right, and you can see the cars that are behind him are actually going to be trapped off the lead lap. That's Rexing back there. Ethan Burrell is going to be lined up second. I believe that is the 19 of Tooker, the 12 of Leniger. So it looks like Tooker, Kosla, Tooker's ahead of the leader. So it looks like the 10 of Rexing is going to be at least trapped a lap down.
Yeah, I'm trying to see when his last pit stop when Chad's last pit stop might have been. It makes me wonder why he would decide to stay out here. It looks like he pit on lap 53.
He maybe pit on the very lap the caution came out, perhaps?
He was on pit road the moment the caution came out. He was the luckiest car on the track. Wow.
My goodness. Talk about timing.
Absolutely. And I mean, you need a little bit of luck in this chase for things to work out in your favor, and Chad Frankenfield got exactly that. A great turn of events for him.
It looks like there are some guys ahead of him that will be able to take the wave around. I think that Kosla, Tooker, I think they'll be able to get the wave around. The 2 cars I think that did get trapped a lap down after those pit stops, and the 15 being able to have that perfect timing of getting to pit road would be the 13 of Vincent Isabella and the 10 of Jared Rexing, who was running in 4th when those pit stops began.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So Vincent Isabella will be the first car a lap down, and all these other cars in front of Chad will get the wave around, and we'll start at the tail end of the field.
We saw Frankenfield. We haven't seen him battle for the lead yet, but he's stayed up in the top 5 all race long. Now he's going to have the restart in his control, and let's be honest, probably the fastest car on track, Ethan Burrell, is going to be lined up on that outside line. So this could be a pretty good battle between the 15 and the 37 when we go back green.
Yeah, for sure. And we have no idea how Chad's car handles out front in that clean air. So it'll be, and neither does he. So it'll be interesting to see what he can make work of here on this restart.
We had that round of green flag pit stops. We had that caution come out right in the middle of them. And a couple of drivers that brought out the second caution of the day are going to restart in 5th and 7th. Logan Shea, who we saw get loose, and collect Matthew Weeks, they're both going to be restarting up inside of the top 10. That's why you have to stay for the end of these races, because even though someone might have run into an issue early on, they could be up here with a chance for the win in the closing stages.
Yeah, for sure. And Logan Shea is one of those guys that could play an upset card. I believe he's the highest running non-chaser, if I'm correct. No, so I'm sorry.
No,
Reasoner. That's correct. Yep. So I mean, yeah, he's looking at a chance to maybe pull an upset here with 59 laps to go when we take the green.
Frankenfield and Ethan Burrell the front row. They'll be followed by Leniger and Ethan Reasoner, Scott Haney and Logan Shea. They're going to make up row 3. Matthew Weeks and Alex Balvance in the 4th row, and Michael Goodman alongside of Dustin Dewar. That is your top 10. We've only got 3 playoff contenders right now, the top 3 running up inside the top 10.
And I mean, that's fantastic news for those 3 playoff drivers as we take the green here. A lot of cars between them and their chase competitors.
Absolutely. As Frankenfield begins to pull away, Ethan Burrell was able to clear Damian Leniger. Let's see how quickly he's going to be able to maybe reel the 15 in. How soon will he have a battle for the race lead?
He's going to try that outside line, see if he can get a pull around the top. It looks like it might be working for him. Really tight off the corner there with Reasoner, or with Leniger, I apologize.
Leniger was right up on his left rear quarter panel trying to pull him back so that way they could have a side-by-side battle down the back straightaway. No luck, as the 37 able to pull away just the least little bit. And we got a good battle going on here for 4th. Right now, Ethan Reasoner and Logan Shea, they're mixing it up just inside the top 5.
Yes, indeed, absolutely. It's a little bit of contact almost looked like off of turn 4 there. Logan really pushing to try and see if maybe he can steal a win here from Ethan and the rest of the top 3.
Now those top 2, it looks like the gap is closing. Ethan Burrell was faster than Frankenfield that last time around. Not by much, but he is slowly reeling him in and starting to close the gap. Now the question is, we saw Ethan Burrell back near the beginning of this race. He passed Frankenfield. That was for 3rd at the time. So we know he's got a car that can make moves. Question is now, he spent a good portion of time out in front. What's he going to do with the 15 now, with the battle being for the race lead?
Yeah, he hasn't had to pass anybody yet, so we'll see how he's able to manage that. He spent, like you said to your point, he spent so much time up front. He hasn't had to race anybody. So it's opposite sides of the spectrum. One guy hasn't had his car out in clean air and now does. One guy hasn't raced in dirty air and now has to. So we'll see who can overcome the odds here.
Back there, Jared Campbell and Tate Lyle, they may feel like a bunch of Russell Stouffer chocolates. They are boxed in right now, trying to make their way up into the top 10. I had to throw a pun in there. I'm sorry.
Oh, for sure.
Campbell up into 3rd now. Tate Lytle trying to crack the top 10 in 11th, and time is slowly beginning to run out for those guys.
Oh, man. I thought Tate Lytle was going to get squeezed into the wall. I thought he was going to try and move to the outside. We got a caution on the racetrack, Seth.
We do. It's going to be our 4th caution of the day, and it's going to come in within the 20 laps to go mark.
Looks like it was a spin off of 4.
Now, here's the interesting thing. If you're one of those guys up there towards the front, do you give up the track position to come to pit road, get fresh tires for what will probably be like the final 15 laps of this race, or do you stay out, run the risk that a lot of guys behind you are going to come to pit road and get tires?
If it's me, I stay out. That was with 4 laps. I think that's I'm pretty comfortable with how my car feels on 4-lap old tires. If it's me, no matter how many guys stay out behind me or pit behind me, I'm going to be staying out and see if I can gain any track position or hold on to the track position I already have.
Could have been a little contact between Kosla and Robin. Don't know. Maybe Robin just checked up there with 54 coming down on. Oh, there was a little bit of contact, and that sends the 2 car around.
Yeah, it looks like the 2 had a pretty good run off the corner and just wasn't. Those 2 in front of him were side by side off, which is going to slow those guys down. So it looks like he just might have jumped on the brakes to try and avoid any more contact than what was already made, and just lost control. All
right, so not to jinx anything, but we've run 60 of these 80 laps, we are only working our fourth caution, but now we're getting down into the nitty-gritty. It'll be probably about 15 laps to go when we go back green. You gotta think that the aggressiveness is gonna kick up. What do you think? Do we see more cautions here, or wait a minute, are we having pit stops here?
Burrell's gonna dive on.
Whoa!
Burrell.
I thought Frankenfield was coming. He faked me out.
Yeah, I did too. Burrell is gonna come get some fresh tires. It's not a horrible decision, but it's late in the race, and he's got a fast car, but I just don't know if he's gonna have enough time to race his way through the field. So many guys stayed out. Let's see.
Again, here's the thing too. Like I said, we may see the aggressiveness amp up here, and if you're back in the pack, you could get swept up in something.
Exactly. I'm not sure if that was the right move from Burrell. I would be more than happy to be proven wrong and see him drive his way up to the front again. But I think I definitely would have stayed out on the tires that they had on the car right now. Fuel mileage is not an issue anymore. We're inside of 20 laps, almost inside of 15. I'm just not sure about that decision, but we'll see.
Well, it looks like the cars that stayed out, 8 in total: Frankenfield, Leniger, Reasoner, Shea, Dewar, Campbell, Balvance, and Clark. Looks like Ethan Burrill will line up in the 9th position. So he lost, I believe, 7 positions with coming to pit road. I don't know. I would say maybe with 15 laps to go, with as good a car he has, maybe he can work his way back up to the front, but we saw just how much difficulty Campbell and Tate Lytle had on that last run trying to fight their way through traffic.
Yeah, dirty air is just such a huge factor, and none of these guys are going to move out of his way. I mean, they're going to race at just as hard as he is. It's just a matter of how quickly can he get through the traffic and make his way up to the front. Again, if it were me personally, I'd stay out on the 4-lap old tires and run with that. But we've got a disconnect here, Seth. Tyler Riggs.
Oh boy, it's another playoff contender. A 2-time winner this season, and oh man, especially this late in the race, it's tough to have a disconnect.
Yeah, he was running in the 14th position before that happened.
He was 3rd in the playoff standings coming into this one. He was 7 points ahead of Jared Campbell, who came in the 4th driver in the points, kind of the cutoff line, if you will, for the final 4.
Right. It looks like it, but he's back in it now. So I don't know if he lost a lap. We'll see.
I think he did.
Okay, so he's not totally out of it. So good to see him reconnect there. Hopefully he'll be able to. There's going to be a lot of cautions at this finish. At least I assume there will be. So he's not out of it entirely, but.
You bring that up, and that kind of goes to a point I was going to bring up a moment ago, talking about Ethan Burrill coming to pit road, getting those fresher tires. He might be expecting the same thing, that we're going to have a few yellows before this race is over. And we've seen this happen at the speedways in the past. We saw it happen at Michigan. We saw it happen back at Kansas, where drivers would come to pit road, they'd get tires. Yeah, they gave up track position, but they'd pass 3 or 4 cars before a caution. Then they'd move themselves maybe from 10th up to 6th. Then they'd restart in 6th. Another caution would come out. They'd pick up another 3 or 4 spots before that yellow came out. So maybe that's the strategy Ethan Burrill's thinking right now.
Yeah, for sure. And that's entirely possible. Absolutely. And then on the flip side of that, just to argue that point, not that I don't disagree, if those cautions happen in quick succession, the guys up at the front, like Chad Frankenfield, for instance, will they continue to stay out? And maybe Ethan doesn't, or Burrell doesn't gain as much track position as he would hope. So that's again why personally I would stay out and keep the track position that I already have. But you're absolutely right. That could definitely be what's in the back of his mind right now.
We saw when both Frankenfield and Ethan Burrell were on equal footing tire-wise, it was kind of looking like Ethan Burrell was trying to search for a lane to get around the 15. So we'll see now if a little bit fresher tires are going to be what he needs. Interesting front row here. You've got Frankenfield, who right now, as we've mentioned before, he comes in the points leader. So, if he wins, then that's an automatic ticket into the final 4. But he's just right now, I think, looking big picture to make sure he at least points his way in. But then you got Leniger there on that outside line, and he's been aggressive all race long.
Yeah, for sure. And to your point about the points racing for Chad, I mean, he's in position A to do it, even if he doesn't win. The gap to David Tooker right now is huge. David Tooker back in 14th, and he's running second in points right now. So a big gain for Chad if he were to finish at this big of a gap here.
And don't rest on the 31 of Jared Campbell, who was out in front early. He restarts in the 6th position, so we may not have heard the last of him as the green is back in the air. 14 laps to go at Auto Club.
It was a terrible, terrible start for the 32 on the bottom. It left a huge gap to the top 3 in front, Dustin Dewar. It's going to allow the top about 5 or 6 cars to get single file here coming off of turn 2.
Who got a heck of a run, too. He was right with Frankenfield, and that was Ethan Reasoner. Jumped past Leniger up to 2nd place. Great performance for the non-playoff contender.
Yeah, for sure, and he is all over the back bumper of the 15 coming into turn number 3, seeing if he's got anything for him, trying to be that upset.
Length separation between Frankenfield and Reasoner. Leniger in 3rd. Right now, Logan Shea in 4th, and you got it almost 3 wide back there. Is that Tate Lytle coming up the middle? No, it's Joshua Clark, rather, in the 28.
Josh Clark. Yep, making a heck of a move on Jared Campbell, almost taking him and the 32 3 wide there down the straightaway. Plenty of room to do it, but it's always a sketchy situation when you do.
Going back to document the 37 of Ethan Burrell. Restarted 9th, still running 9th, so maybe that wasn't the best call for the 37 team. We'll see as the run goes on if we remain green, if maybe he can cut his way through traffic, but he is losing ground to Chad Frankenfield every single lap.
To cut away from the action here real quick, Tyler Riggs was able to get back into the race. He's only a lap down, but he's not the first car a lap down. Vincent Isabella is, so he's going to have to race his way up to that position if he wants to get back on the lead lap and have a shot at finishing well in this race.
Leniger drove it deep there into turn 1, tried to close in the inside of Ethan Reasoner, couldn't do it.
Burrell made a heck
contact
of a
back
move.
there.
I'm not sure if it was between Burrell and those guys, but he made a heck of a move off of turn 3, split him, cautions out on the racetrack.
Yes, it is, and I think it might have been the 5. It was Val Vance, who was actually banging doors with Ethan Burrell down the back straightaway. We got a couple other drivers collected up in this as well.
That was the move I was talking about there. Yeah, it was just a never-ending freight train of 3 wide. Oh, the 32 looks like he might have given the 5 a little bit of help.
I
don't know about that.
That started all the way from turn 2 and ended over in turn 3.
It did, absolutely. And you got to think that maybe the 5 didn't get spooked by the move that the 37 made coming up the middle like that. I'm not too sure. It looked like it might have scared him a little bit.
I think to your point with what you said, I think the 5 was checking up, allowing the 32 to gather it back up. Ethan Burrell says, I'm not lifting at all.
No, I mean, he's got to go. He's got to make that move. Oh, man, I'm just looking back at the wreck. The 13 of Vincent Isabella took a huge hit. And because the 13 was involved in that caution, I believe Tyler Riggs gets back on the lead lap.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I'm watching, we watched the replay back, and I didn't see any, I don't know if you did on your end, I didn't see any contact over in turn 2 between the 32 and the 5, but it almost looked like the contact over in 3 almost looked like a little bit of payback, perhaps?
Yeah, that's what I was concerned about. It looked like it was I hate to point fingers. It just looked intentional. I don't know if it was, but it definitely looked like, there was not a lot of take there. Or not a lot of give, I'm sorry. There was a lot of take, but there was not a lot of give.
As we look at it right here again, it's hard to tell. I mean, it could be a case of, one driver getting a run on the other and, Val Vance not realizing the closing rate the 32 had on him. But yeah, when you consider the fact that 2 of them were in close proximity over in turn 2, it makes you wonder.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that we'll leave for the stewards to settle. Don't want to point any fingers too much, but just definitely an unfortunate situation for those 2 drivers and the other drivers that got caught up.
Well, we talked about Ethan Burrell right in the thick of all that, and he did not lift. He moved his way now up to the 6th position for this restart, but we're probably going to be getting back green with maybe 8, possibly 7 laps to go. It took him a long time to work his way from 9th up to 6th. Do you think he's got enough to work his way from 6th up to the race lead?
Well, he certainly thinks he does. If that move off of turn 2 was any indication of that, there was definitely no hesitation there. So I believe he's got a good race car, or he's confident in his race car. So I have all the faith in the world that he can get up to the front here in time.
The only thing I'd be a little bit worried about is the last 2 restarts, including this one. He's going to be on that outside line. And there were a couple of drivers that did not get going on the last restart, Leniger and Dustin Doer. So if drivers, again, check him up on that outside line, that's going to kill his momentum and maybe take him out of a chance of winning this race.
For sure, absolutely. But we have seen him. This is a wide front straightaway. So if that outside line does get checked up, he can always dart up to the top side. And because he's on the outside, he can gain positions. He can pass guys up there before the start-finish line. So it's we've seen him work that outside line in turn 1 and 2 on these restarts as well, and he's been able to gain some spots that way. So it's going to be very exciting to see on this restart.
We've been jumping into the heads of playoff contenders, trying to think of what they might be thinking. Let's go into the mind of Frankenfield here, because if you look behind him, you got Leniger, who's going to restart in 3rd. We've seen every time the leader has taken the inside line, but if Frankenfield takes the outside line and the 86 doesn't get going, that's a playoff contender in the 12 that he checks up and maybe is able to get away from.
Well, we saw something, didn't we see something like that from the 37 at Michigan before this playoff race? With a little bit of mind games here, putting that possibly a slower car in front of him. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Maybe some restart games can be played here on this next restart, excuse me.
As you mentioned, Tyler Riggs, with this caution, has gotten back on the lead lap. It looks like he'll be restarting in the 18th position, so we'll see how many spots he can pick up in the closing stages of this race. Don't think he's necessarily going to get up there for the race win, but he might be able to get up there and get a top 15 out of this, which obviously with that late disconnect would certainly be a good recovery.
Yeah, for sure. And he's running 3rd in points right now, so you can bet he's going to be trying to nose his way up as far as he can get here to get as many points as he can. But I'm sure he's gonna be thankful that he was even able to get back into this race and have himself a shot at salvaging a good finish.
We are going to be going green with 7 laps to go, and look at this. Frankenfield has chosen the top side. So this gives the advantage possibly to Ethan Burrell. It puts Damian Leniger at a bit of a disadvantage. This is going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, for sure. And he's going to be able to, it's the other thing it's going to do is give that 15 a better arc into the corner. He's going to be able to drive it in a little bit harder and get away off of 2, hopefully, from that 86 of Ethan Reisner and his playoff rivals behind him as well.
We also should point out, even though we're going to have 7 laps to go when we get the green flag, if a caution comes out, we do have overtime. We have 1 green-white checkered attempt. So this race is still not over by a long shot. So hold on tight, folks. This is going to be a very interesting race to the finish. You've got a number of drivers up here that are realizing if they win here tonight, they can head into Iowa, head into Atlanta, knowing they are battling for the championship at Homestead.
Oh, fantastic restart. I wonder if that was a little early, Seth. From the 15 of Chad Frankenfield. We'll have to see here.
Not
in these
exactly
next few
sure,
laps.
but I'll tell you who was ready for it, and that was Ethan Burrell. He's gonna. He thought about going up the middle 3 wide.
He wanted to. Here he is. He's gonna try and look to the outside of the 86 off of 2. He just doesn't have the run put together just yet. He's going to try coming in the 3. Jared Campbell, way low off of 2.
Saved it. Contact took her off the door of Rexing. He's going to save it right in front of Campbell.
Oh, my goodness. It's just happening everywhere here.
Now we've got Ethan Burrell trying. He's getting loose off the corner.
He's close.
He does. Oh my goodness.
Wow, my gosh, but that's a huge blow for him. He's just going to lose a ton of spots. He's 8th place at the line, and he's going to continue to drop spots.
Oh, and get Joshua Clark a new change of shorts. That moves him up to 3rd, but he nearly got taken out with his teammate right there. And now that's good news for Chad Frankenfield, who continues to pull away.
Breathing a
Oh, we
huge...
got a car around. That's the 3. The 3 of Scott Haney is spun.
He's going to... And Jared Campbell as well. He's around as well.
Oh, no. Caution. And now we're going to get
there
one.
It is.
Get one. We are.
Yep.
Haney got into him.
I couldn't keep up. There was too much going on. Oh my goodness.
Thank goodness for a caution for us. We're able to catch our breath. Gracious.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a huge break for Ethan Burrell. I mean, his race was over. His chance at winning this race was out the window. He's still got a shot at it, but wow, that was a wild couple laps. And the one guy who did not want to see this caution is Chad Frankenfield, because he was to the good. He had 3 or 4 cars between him and Leniger, I believe.
That's what happened with Scott Haney. And I think he just got loose. Oh no, there was contact between himself and Tooker.
Yeah.
And then he went around and clipped Jared Campbell.
Campbell had a busy couple laps there. He had his hands full. So it's unfortunate for him, because he's I mean, this is a blow to him, because he's running 4th in the standings right now. So he's just trying to get every spot he can get. He was running 13th, I believe, at the time of the caution. So
where there rounds, yeah, he was just outside the top 10. I know that. I think he had actually come to pit road under that last yellow, which is why he was running back where he was.
Correct. Yeah, he did pit under that last caution. And he did take a pretty big knock on the back end too after he had finished spinning from the 3. So he'll have some repairs here under this caution.
Him dart down to the inside, hoping the 3 wasn't going to clip him, and sure enough, he did. And you'll see right here the shot he's going to take right there in the left rear quarter panel from Scott Haney as well. So that's obviously a tough break there for Campbell. As you mentioned, in a very critical position points-wise.
Yeah, for sure. And a tough break for Scott Haney. He was running well. He restarted up in the top 5 there a few restarts ago. So he was putting together a decent run, had a decent car. So it's tough to see even guys that are outside of the playoffs just having a good run put to waste like that.
You mentioned about Chad Frankenfield not happy with his caution. Let me put to you 3 drivers that were very happy with this yellow. First, Tate Lytle. This is going to line him up 5th for this restart. He's been able to fight his way back finally into the top 5. Second, Jared Rexting. He was a lap down because of the caution coming out in the middle of green flag pit stops. He's now fought his way back up to 8th. And Tyler Riggs, who had that late disconnect problem, got the lucky dog on the last caution. He's back up now on the lead lap in the 12th position.
Yeah, for sure. And that's huge for him, actually, because that's a good chunk of points he gained that he would have soon lost if that race had stayed green. So that's a huge break for him as well. And like I said at the moment of caution, it's a huge break for Ethan Burrell, because he was dropping like a rock in the ocean, man. I mean, he was going to go to the back. He got so loose off of 4, was able to hang on to it. But luckily for him, he's restarting 9th, or possibly will be restarting 9th, right behind Jared Rexing in the 10.
Now, Chad Frankenfield has to kind of play the guessing game all over again. We saw him choose the top side on the last restart. That pinned Damian Leniger on the bottom behind Ethan Riesener. Now, they would line up the same way again, but Frankenfield would have Joshua Clark behind him second on that outside line. And remember, we saw Clark make that 3-wide move up the middle on the last restart. So with how aggressively he's driving, do you want that guy behind you going into turns 1 and 2?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I'm Chad, I'm taking the outside again, just because of how good of a restart he had last time and how hard he was able to drive it into 2, or excuse me, drive it off of 2 and into 1. And either way you look at it, Damian Leniger is going to be trapped behind 2 non-playoff drivers. I would expect he takes the outside again here.
To update you on where the playoff contenders are running, you got Frankenfield out in front. Leniger now is in the 3rd position. Tate Lytle's fought his way back up to 5th. Rucker is going to restart in 7th. Ethan Burrell, after that slide we saw he had, he's dropped back into 9th. David Tooker in 10th. Riggs right now in 12th. And then you've got some of the guys that have struggled here this evening. Jared Campbell, after that wreck, he's back now in 19th. And, of course, we've already documented Kendall Noah Player out of the race.
Yeah, so a couple big blows to some chase drivers here. The biggest one, obviously, as you mentioned, Kendall Player is obviously going to be taking the hardest hit here. So this will be a green-white checkered finish. We just got the notification now. Oh, hold on.
We've only got one. Only got one.
We've only got one, absolutely. And it's, remember now, if they make it, they've all they got to do is complete one green flag lap. If they make it back to the white flag, the next flag will end the race. So this race will be official at the white flag. So they've only got to get around one lap, and then they can wreck all they want.
Frankenfield's going to take the bottom. He'll have Leniger behind him. This is an interesting strategy. We'll see what happens here as Reasoner will line up to his outside. It's going to be playoff contenders lining up 1, 2, 3 on that inside line. Be interesting to see if they're lined up nose to tail going into turns 1 and 2. But I think Frankenfield, obviously, if he can get the correct restart, he might be able to leave them all in the dust. It's
interesting that he chose the inside line because I stand corrected. So now he puts Damian Leniger right on his back bumper. I don't know. We'll see. I thought Chad was close on that last restart, beating the pace car. He wasn't. So we'll see if he goes again just at the exact same time, or maybe he plays head games and goes a little bit later this time.
That whole inside line for the first 5 rows is actually playoff contenders. The 15, 12, 56, 64, and 37. So this could be very interesting in these final 2 laps here. Green-white checkered at Auto Club.
Chad's going again. He went early. That's a great restart for him there.
It's got to make quick work of Ethan Reasoner if he's going to have a shot, and I don't think he got a very good start. No, he did not. Looks like Reasoner's going to move down in front of him for second.
Yeah, he's going to move down in front, and Damian Leniger that's not what he wanted to have happen. He's got no run, 15 off of 2. Here comes Reasoner, though. He's closing up close to that 15's back bumper.
For Ethan Reasoner's got nothing to lose. He had a shot of maybe winning at Daytona and making it into the playoffs. He hit the rumble strip at the road course section. He wants to deny Frankenfield a trip to Homestead and get his first win of the season.
All is good to turn 3 and 4. Car in the wall off of Is it going to bring out the yellow? It is! Chad Frankenfield, your winner at Auto Club.
Believe Andrew Rucker was caught up in that wreck with the 28 of Clark as well.
Oh, that's so unfortunate. Andrew Rucker drove a great race to put himself in good position, and he's caught up in a last lap wreck. That's so unfortunate.
5 of Alec Balvance collected also. And as you said, Frankenfield wins this race. They almost made it back to the white, but maybe about 300 yards short.
Yeah, only just. And Seth, I can't help but go back to that caution during the green flag cycle, the green flag pit stop cycle. Chad Frankenfield was on pit road at the moment of caution. Ethan Burrell had stayed out. He was leading. It got Chad Frankenfield to the lead, and he never looked back since.
You see what brought out that caution, racing back to the line to receive the white flag. Looked like contact between Joshua Clark and Tate Lytle in a battle for, I believe that was the 4th position. And you saw Rucker had absolutely nowhere to go. And Frankenfield, we already mentioned that, he had a great opportunity to point his way in, but as he comes down to cross the line, he's definitely going to Homestead now with the win at Auto Club.
Great drive for him. It's so crazy how something so early in the race or something that happened so long ago could have such a huge impact. He got out front with that lucky break, and he just never looked back. A great drive from Chad. He can breathe easy these next 2 races.
Got to give a penalty to the 56 of Tate Lytle. I think he took out the commitment cone there on that cool down lap, but nonetheless.
A little friendly tap to the back bumper of Chad as well there in turn 1 and 2, and a little congratulations. You like to see that, even though that these 2 are rivals in the postseason. You like to see that good show of sportsmanship here.
Absolutely. So Frankenfield, I'm not exactly certain how the final 4-point system works, but I know that they carried over bonus points earned in the first round to the second round here. I don't know if bonus points now carry over from the second round into the finale or not, but if that is the case, now Frankenfield can start concentrating on racking up bonus points when we get to Iowa and Atlanta.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely an interesting take. And I think, based on the real world, I think it's going to be a win. And the winner of the race is going to win the championship. I expect the top four to be the top four in the playoffs. So it's going to be very exciting come Homestead.
At Frankenfield going to burn it down here in the grass at Auto Club. We saw Ethan Reasoner alongside of him. Give a shout out to him. Non-playoff contender, but his best finish of the season in the second position. You know, he almost pulled off a Ryan Lutz from Martinsville. He was almost that non-playoff driver spoiler there, but he raced Frankenfield clean on those last couple of restarts, and still a great performance out of the 86 team.
Yeah, and you know he's gutted at that attempt. He's probably smacking the wheel as he saw the yellow flags being waved by the starter stand there. He was definitely going to be. He had a run coming off of Forest Seth, and he was going to definitely give the dive bomb a try in 1 and 2. I think it's unfortunate that time ran out for him here, but a great drive nonetheless.
As Chad Frankenfield burns it down here in front of the fans at Auto Club, knowing he is going on to Homestead. Now we head into Iowa. We head into Atlanta wondering who's going to join him. With a playoff contender winning here tonight, we now know at least one driver is going to make it in on points. And you look here, you know, these are some of these guys we might want to look at as Final Four contenders behind Frankenfield and Reason. You got Leniger finishing in third. Tate Lytle battled back for fourth. Ethan Burrell, that was a great comeback for him. We saw him lose a lot of spots there prior to that last caution, and he was able to battle back for fifth, so that keeps him back up in the title picture.
Yep, yeah, for sure. But again, I got to go back to that decision he made where Chad stayed out and he was running second and he decided to pit. I still disagree with that decision that he made. I think that cost him a chance at this win, Seth.
I think you're definitely right. I think if he had kept his track position, it looked like, especially in the first half of the race, he had a much better car than the 15. And when he gave up the track position, he was essentially giving the clean air and potentially the win to Frankenfield. And you look at these guys on down through sixth on down, a lot of these guys got some good finishes because of that wreck that took place off of 4. Rexing able to battle back after being trapped a lap down with about 20 to go. He finishes sixth. Matthew Weeks, first time we saw him up in the top 10, I think all race long. He got seventh. Tooker in eighth. Goodman there in ninth. And Josh Robin was able to battle back after his late spin for 10th.
Yeah, for sure. Good top 10 finish for him. Jared Campbell, who had that, he had that rough restart there where he was bouncing around like a ping pong ball. It was, he brought it home 14th. And Tyler Riggs, who we talked about disconnecting there briefly, was able to come back. He's finished 19th. So he was able to salvage some points had he not been able to come back, but definitely not the finish he was out there hoping for.
Definitely not. And you see here the rest of the drivers where they finished. And the big one right there, Kendall Noah Player came into this race out of the 9 playoff contenders in 6th. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he's down. I think he'll drop maybe to 8th. I think with Rucker having that issue on the final lap, he may stay 9th of the playoff contenders. But nonetheless, the last thing you want to do, especially in the second round heading to the finale, you don't want to lose spots in the standings.
Yeah, for sure. And with Chad Frankenfield winning this race, it puts a knot in everybody's plans. It's now a must win for, I think personally, for everybody except him, obviously. Chad, these guys did not want Chad to be the guy that they had to worry about beating here this evening, or these 3 races rather. These next 2 races, I mean. So him winning tonight really amps up the importance of these next 2 races for all these other guys that are looking to race their way into the Final Four.
Definitely agree with you, because the 2 other guys I might have put into the category of maybe not having to really worry would have been David Tooker and Tyler Riggs, but Riggs finished in 19th and Tooker finished in 8th. Not exactly safe positions. If they were up in the top 5, that's one thing, but finishing outside the top 5, I'd be a little bit worried even if I were them at this point, especially knowing the kind of tracks we're going to in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And because Damian Leniger finished so well in third place, he gained a big chunk of points on a lot of guys. David Tooker and Tyler Riggs being two of those names. David Tooker, maybe not so much as he finished there in eighth, only 5 spots behind him, but Tyler Riggs for sure. He finished a good 16 spots ahead of him, 18 spots ahead of him. So that's a big points gain for him. But he's still got to race his heart out here these next 2 weeks.
Same deal for Ethan Burrell as well. Spent some time out in front, got the lap lead bonus point. He obviously finished up there in the top 5. Also, I think he gained quite a bit of spots in the standings as well. And we're going to talk here with our third place finisher, the second highest of the playoff drivers here this evening, Damian Leniger, and find out just exactly what he could have maybe done on those final 2 restarts. Damian, it's Logan and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network booth. You got us?
Yeah, you guys got me?
Yes, we do. Well, man, you were fighting tooth and nail up there in the top 5 all race long, and then you're up there running in the 3rd position on those final 2 restarts. Was there anything you could have done to be able to get up there to the 15?
I think if it went green, Chad made the bold strategy call that really messed me up with not the last restart, but the second to last one where he took the outside, and he got a real good jump, and it kind of shuffled me back to 6th and took me a couple laps, and I got back up to 3rd, and just as I got to 3rd and was starting my way back up to those top 2, we got the other caution, and it kind of just messed me all up from there.
You came into this race 8th of the 9 playoff contenders. Obviously, a 3rd place run is certainly going to help your chances of making it to the final 4, but are you in a position where you're looking to point your way into the final 4, or do you find yourself kind of in a mentality of a must-win situation coming into this race, heading into Iowa next week, and of course Atlanta in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I definitely see myself in a must-win. We have so many strong competitors in here with Chad and Ethan and Tate and Gerald and Andrew, and all of them are still in the chase as well. So I definitely saw it as a must-win. I actually am not a big fan of running at Auto Club. So this race was actually really shocking to me that I was doing this well. And I'm not a big fan of Atlanta in these cars either. So I was really looking forward to Iowa, but this is definitely a good run just to kind of start and give me a good base to maybe point my way in if some things break my way.
Damian, you started 4th, you ran up front most of the day. How did, in those final, those late race cautions and those late race restarts, how did you feel your car compared to Chad's? Did you think you had a quick enough car to run him down in the short runs? I know you talked about maybe if the race stayed green and maybe had a decent run, you might be able to run him down, but did you think you had anything for him there in those last few short runs?
I think in the short run, I think I did. He was really struggling with the first 10 to 15 laps with his car. It really, especially on that long run, I got out there and I kind of held him about a half-second gap for a while. And then just as we neared about lap 20, 23 of the run, he really came on strong and he got to me and passed me pretty quick. But I think for the first 15 to 20 laps, I had a pretty decent car. Speed wise, and I think if it would have went green, I would have had something for him, at least give him a good battle. But I never got that situation. But shout out to Chad for playing his strategy right on that and getting that lucky break with that caution to put himself in the lead.
Well, nonetheless, a top 3 run should put you at least points-wise in a good situation going into Iowa. We're going to take the opportunity, hand the mic over to you, and let's do some shout-outs.
All right, I want to shout you guys out first for broadcasting this for us this season. You guys are doing a fantastic job with that. I need to thank Chad, Vic, Chris. Vic and Chris were admins tonight, and Chad for having Elite and giving us a place to have some decent competition and run every week. And I need to thank Bright Lights guys. I need to thank Jared, Ryan, Josh, all of my teammates for any tips that we give each other throughout the week and everything. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, well, congrats on your 3rd place run. Hopefully this momentum carries over into Iowa, and maybe we'll talk to you again next week.
Sweet. Thanks, guys.
You bet, Damien. Thanks.
All right, let's bring in the possible spoiler in this race, Ethan Riesener, his best career finish of 2nd. Ethan, Seth, and Logan up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yes, I do.
Well, I believe this is your first podium finish of the season. It's your best career finish of the season in second. And your reward is you get to talk to us for the first time. Man, you almost played spoiler there. You almost had the 15. We had that caution come out just before the white flag. Was there any strategy you had of setting Frankenfield up on that final lap?
No, all that I could really do was just focus on my line and hope that nobody else behind me caught me. I felt like there was just a little bit too much aero push. I wasn't quite as fast as Chad, and he had a couple of really good sets of turns, and he was leaving me coming to the white flag when that caution came out. He would have had to make a big mistake for me to have a shot at.
It looked like you were going to give him a run for his money nonetheless. Talk about those last couple of restarts there. You were starting alongside of him, but he was controlling the restarts, and you did a pretty good job of making sure you cleared either the third or fourth place car, depending on which line he restarted in.
Yes, unlike real life NASCAR where you have to go off that restart zone, the fact that Chad could go whenever he wanted to really makes it almost impossible for the second place guy to keep up. And I tested under the caution. I wanted to make sure I didn't have any wheel spin on the warm tires, and I got through the gears pretty well. If you can get off of turn 2 by yourself, clear, and control your line into turn 3, and that's what I did, you can hold your position even if you're not the fastest guy. So yes, I did do a really good job of getting up to speed and not letting guys get beside me.
Ethan, does coming into this race, does the mindset into your head at all that, hey, I'm outside of the chase and I'm out here just to win races and I could really screw things up if I win this afternoon? Does that mindset have any influence on the way you race? Does it make you any more or less determined to go out there and win a race, to know that you could really throw a curveball in the championship standings?
No, I'm not worried about wrecking somebody. I'm focused entirely on myself. I just go week to week. Let's stay focused. I want to stay focused on getting the best finish that I can week to week, every single race. I want to be very respectful. If somebody's about to get beside me, even if they are or aren't a playoff driver, I'm not worried about the orange on the splitter or the spoiler. I want to give everybody room. I want to run my race. I don't want to push too hard and get myself in trouble, because it's just penalizing myself trying to dive bomb. I didn't try to dive bomb on Chad because I knew that I was doing a good enough job to stay in second. I just wanted to be consistent and smooth because that's what I do best. I'm not going to have the fastest laps. I'm not going to be on the ragged edge, but I sure am going to finish the race, that's for sure.
Obviously, a great finish for you there in second place, a terrific performance there. We're going to turn the mic over to you, give you the opportunity to do some shout outs here.
Thank you to Alec Bolvans. He is in the 5 car. He got spun and was maybe involved in a couple of accidents tonight. We're close friends. We've known each other for years. We work together. We actually ran our own little chat on PlayStation. So shout out to him. He makes these races so much more fun for me. And also, thank you to future team owner Kendall Noah Player. We're going to be working together in the next season in both Cup and Xfinity, and he's going to do a great job. Also, thank you to Chad. He's a great manager. He's basically like his own CEO within Elite is becoming basically a company. And I'm really proud of what he has come up with, the kind of connections that he's made just in the last year. You're going to be very impressed with where this league's going. And we're finally starting to have cleaner races too. So there's a bunch of guys who have worked really hard at being well practiced, are really not trying to push it too hard on restarts. And we're actually getting some runs, some green flag runs in these races. I'm really proud of all those guys too that were in this race tonight.
Doubt about it. You gave us an exciting race to commentate, that is for sure. Again, congratulations on your second place run here this evening, and hopefully this momentum carries on in the final 3 races of the year for you.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate that, guys.
Congrats, Ethan.
All right, and before we bring in our race winner, I just want to point out too, we're talking about with Reasoner getting his best career finish of second, but let's not forget too, he's the highest running in the points outside of the playoffs, 15th in the standings. So he's had a very consistent year. Like you said, he's not necessarily going out there expecting to win every week, but he's going to go out there and run all the laps. And a lot of times, consistency and just finishing the race ends up being, something that's a plus and can sometimes get you into the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, he said it himself. He's not the best at hot lapping, and it doesn't matter where you start. It matters where you finish. So absolutely, being consistent has obviously paid off for him here both this afternoon and during the regular season.
All right, let's bring in Chad Frankenfield, our race winner here, and find out what he thought about the timing of that caution. Chad, it's Seth and Logan up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us? We'll try again. Chad, Logan, and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network Studios booth. You got us, buddy? Apparently, our race winner is AFK.
That's unfortunate. I'll give him a ping here. Hang on.
If we can get in touch with him,
he's off celebrating. He's excited about
exactly
2 weeks off. He's well earned. He's popping the champagne down in Victory Lane.
Go in and giving the official that was waving the flags today a big hug, saying thank you for throwing the caution when you did. Wait and see if we can get word with Chad here. While we're waiting for him to come into this, though, I mean, we talked about it at the beginning of the race about pit strategy, and lo and behold, right in the middle of pit strategy, as you said, the timing of that caution when Chad came to pit road, it was the deciding factor of this race.
Yes, and it's absolutely, sorry, I'm going to finish that point first. Yeah, for sure. That got him out to the lead, and that kept him out front. And then I got to go back to it, man. The other deciding factor was the second place car of Ethan Burrell pitting under that one caution. I think that played a huge role because he was as fast, if not faster, than Chad. So it's just little factors like that can make the world of difference in somebody taking the checkered flag.
We just lost Chad. I wonder if maybe he was trying to talk and maybe his microphone wasn't working. We'll see if he tries coming back in here. And if so, we'll move him back in. One thing I should bring up, I was actually notified of it and didn't see it. When the 31 came back to pit road during the cycle of pit stops, it actually was a commitment line violation for Jared Campbell that caused him to have to come back down pit lane. Obviously, He was able to battle his way back onto the lead lap, but that is why he had to come to pit road a second time.
For sure. Got it. Okay, I missed that entire. It was weird. I only saw him go a lap down, so it didn't look like he had any kind of. I believe that's just a drive through, or it's a really quick hold. So. I'm not sure what the penalty is exactly. I haven't had one of those in a while, so I forget. But okay, that's good to know.
He was running up inside the top 10 at the time, and it's a 2-mile racetrack. So the fortunate thing for him was being a big track, he didn't lose 2 laps. He only lost, as we mentioned, the 1 lap, and then obviously was able to get back on the lead lap with the wave around a little bit later on. I don't know. I don't see Frankenfield back in here yet. We'll try and hold off a little bit more here for him. But, Frankenfield is kind of now out of the way. We know he's moving on to Homestead. So now we got to look at some of these guys, like maybe Tate Lytle. We know that he had a good run. You mentioned Damian Leniger, Ethan Burrill. They're now going to be up in the mix with guys like Tooker, Riggs, and Campbell that we kind of thought they might look as shoe-ins to get into the Final Four. Now it's going to, I think, put the points really close amongst 5-6 different drivers going into a very difficult track of Iowa.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you look at the points before the race started here this afternoon. It was the top 3 were kind of, Chad Frankenfield was in his own zip code entering this race. And then it was David Tooker and Tyler Riggs, 3 points separating those two. And then you had a 7-point gap to 4th place Jared Campbell. And then from there, it was it was a very small increment between fourth place and ninth place, Gerald Campbell and Andrew Rucker. So I think you're right. I think this really tightens up the points. A lot of these guys that were up high in the standings, Tyler Riggs and Jared Campbell, didn't bring home the best finishes. So that alone will shake things up and probably drop them down to mid pack. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. I definitely we're looking at a very tight points race now here going into these next two races.
If you looked at the points gap coming into this race between fourth place Jared Campbell back to ninth place Rucker, it was only 12-point gap. And to a point that Ethan Reasoner made, they're having a lot cleaner races now. We haven't seen wreckfests like we saw, towards the early stages of the season. A lot more clean racing, a lot more green flag runs, and as consequence, these big fields, a lot of drivers finishing on the lead lap. And of course, with these bigger fields and every position being a point, makes it even tougher on these guys to make sure that they have good finishes, stay on the lead lap, and manage a gap between themselves and the rest of their competitors.
Yeah, and we're going to see that change next week at Iowa because, we go to a short track and a place where you can go, even especially if we stay green and we have green flag stops, you can lose multiple laps just by pitting there. If you slide your box a couple inches and have to back it up a bit, or you don't get onto pit road as quick as you would have liked, the smallest thing could cost you a lap, maybe even two. And if we have another incident like today where we have a caution come out mid-cycle, that could really throw a wrench in everybody's race plans and really mix things up.
Definitely. And I think here with Auto Club, it kind of opened the door for a lot of different drivers to get up there towards the front, lead some laps and everything. I would kind of look at Iowa in this round in the same light as we looked at Martinsville in the last round. It's a track all about track position, maintaining that track position and keeping your car in one piece. So I think that really for a lot of these guys, they're going to have to focus on how they qualify for Iowa, and that could play a huge factor in determining where they finish at Iowa.
For sure. And you mentioned track position being important. Well, that's true. Iowa's a very slip-slidey place, so a lot of guys are going to be struggling to hang on to their cars in the corners. It's one of those tracks where you really throw it into the bottom and kind of hope there's some grip down there where it's going to hang on. So it'll be interesting to see, and I can't wait to see who's able to master the way the loose race cars are at that tricky that. I think it's a half mile track here next week.
Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to get an interview with Chad Frankenfield. He's celebrating too much with his crew, but
yeah.
well-deserved partying nonetheless. So we're going to wrap this thing up here from Auto Club, but no doubt about it, this race did not disappoint in any way, shape, or form. We're going to be heading to Iowa next week. Logan's going to be alongside me for that. Logan, I want to thank you for being here for this race at Auto Club.
Yeah, for sure. Stoked to be back. I'm excited to. I don't know if I'm stealing anybody's thunder here, but I'm excited to announce that I'll be coming on full time next season. So super stoked for that to commentate alongside you. It's always a pleasure. We've had the pleasure of commentating some really exciting races. Tonight was one of them. So I'm excited for the next season of this to be up here full time.
Absolutely. And it's always helpful for me too to be able to concentrate just on commentating and broadcasting. He's not talking, but he's here. Matthew Rodriguez on vacation has been handling the controls here this evening, so we got to give him a shout out too. Thanks to him for doing that. Really appreciate it. And hope that you guys enjoyed tonight's race as well. It's going to get really interesting in these final two races to find out who's in the final four. Oh, hold the presses. The party's over. He's back. Okay, time for there we go. Chad, do we finally have you?
Yeah, I thought I was on. That was weird.
Okay, there we go. All right, so we were debating. We were trying to figure it out, and I was trying to figure out in my head. Did you for Christmas get like a winning lottery ticket or a 4-leaf clover or something? Because man, the timing of that caution when you were on pit road, that was the deciding factor, I think, into you winning this race.
Yeah, I mean, it just how it played out, I guess. It was a shame we were having a really good long run there. So I would have liked to have gone greener. I think I was quicker with Ethan on the long run. So I'm not sure if I would have had anything for him, but whatever it is, it gets me in the next round, so I'll take it.
obviously you run this league, so you can actually answer this question for me. Do bonus points earned in this round carry over into the Final Four race at Homestead?
No, it's just a reset. So essentially now, now I'm just running for trophies. And that's obviously the goal, obviously, but just got to make one more start, and I'm in.
So you answered my second question right there. All right, Logan, you got anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations, Chad. That was awesome to watch. I got to ask on that one, on the second or third to last restart, when you saw Ethan in the 37 dive on the pit road after playing the little fake out game, did that was that a sigh of relief seeing that maybe that he was going to fall back in the pack, being that he was so quick and possibly going to be able to challenge you for a win here?
Yeah, I felt like that was, to me, as soon as I saw that and I saw the amount of cars, to me that was kind of like I kind of felt like that was probably it. But it's just how it played out. I knew that with the way the heat cycle worked on the tires, you weren't really down a whole lot by staying out. So it just worked out the way we needed to.
That was actually going to be my second question for you is the way the tires played into the runs. Was it appeared to be that they were really, really squirrely and really, really light on new tires. And then once you got a couple laps on them, it started to almost tighten up a bit and feel really, really good. Is that about the same sensation you felt in the car?
Yeah, I mean, it was the restart, every restart on the older tires that it was hooked up. So I knew if it came down to a green-white checkered or a 4-lap shootout, as long as I had a good restart, I was going to be able to hold it, I think. It's just the way it played out. I was able to time the restarts where I wasn't going to have to worry about anybody, timing up my restart. So it was really just a matter of just executing.
All right. Well, obviously, mission accomplished for you. Getting that win. You are locked into Homestead now. We're going to turn the microphone over to you and give you the opportunity to do some shout-outs here.
I just want to thank everybody at Elite Racing. Thank you guys, FRN. And thank you to MegaDriver for sponsoring the series.
All right, well, congratulations on your victory. Glad we were able to actually get that interview in with you. And look forward to seeing what kind of aggressiveness you might be bringing to both Iowa and Atlanta, knowing that you're already locked in to battle for the championship in 3 weeks.
Yeah, just try to have some fun and try not to ruin it for anybody and just try to help my teammates out.
There you go. Well, congratulations, Chad.
All right, see you.
Congrats, Chad. Go celebrate.
And go celebrate again. Anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's going to do it here for our broadcast. Be sure to tune in this Thursday night where we will have the Sim Racers for Mental Health with their modifieds. And then we will be back again here to bring you the action from Iowa next Monday night, the middle race of the second round of the playoffs. But yet again, for Logan, Matt Rudd, and myself, good evening, everybody, and hope you have a great night.